Hey, Al.
Hey, Barry.
Did you hear about that party that the Barbarian threw last week?
No. Please tell me about it.
It was a real rager. It's time for Compelled Duel. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Compelled Duel. I'm Barry.
And I'm Al.
And we are a single-player, co-DM'd D&D 5e actual play podcast.
Previously on Compelled Duel.
Aydra, you're mechanically minded. What happens when the wheel that the city is built on stops turning? The lava redirection stops. The volcano erupts. And the city descends into a lake of fire, essentially.
So, if anybody leaves the city, they get shot to death, and if anybody stays in the city, they get melted. I love that for us. How do we turn it back on?
Oh, you're still mad about that thing where I killed you, huh?
Yeah, a little.
Go save these people, Phirora. You have my blessing.
You see the veritable ocean of lava in this caldera. And you see that it is steadily rising. Aydra, how's it going?
Stop rushing me!
Not trying to rush you, but, I think the environment's doing that for us.
I need more time!
Alright, let's fast forward through the introductions. I'm sure you already know who I am. Leoril Valcynes, Grand Duke of Astraria, blah blah blah. I assure you I am every bit the murderous hellspawn that people have told you I am. Let's cut to the chase. What did my father send you down here to do tonight? This guy looks up at you from the ground. A delicate glass capsule between his teeth. Crunches down on it. And dies foaming at the mouth within 10 seconds.
So, we pick up shortly after the fight down in the mechanism that spins the Great Wheel of Voldhur. Leo, you, your sister, and your cousins are walking back up the street to your aunt's house. How you feeling, buddy?
Pained. I lost quite a few hit points. And very tired.
So true. And that is very much the vibe as you all walk up the steps. Dexter's feeling fine.
Good for him. Leo's gonna turn him loose in the yard as soon as they get in the gate.
Yeah, Dexter's having a great time. He does like the puppy play bow as you let him loose.
Not now, buddy. I'll play fetch with you later, okay?
Horrible, horrible spectral bark. But Dexter does go and lay down on the porch.
Leo pinches the bridge of his nose and just goes inside.
As you go in, your Aunt Nora, your Uncle Boreas, your Uncle Aaron, Lorelei Shakrana, and one Mr. Zed Stonebloom are all in the sitting room, and they all get to their feet when you walk in and just immediately start crowding around the four of you. They all start chattering, and then Lark just sticks two fingers in their mouth and whistles. And it goes silent for a second. And they kind of bring their hands up and shake them out and go, I need a bath. And then Aydra from behind them, sounding very pained, goes,
I need to sit down.
Leo just stares straight ahead of him for a couple seconds, silently. I need a hug.
Zed's gonna give you a big hug. Lark kind of starts elbowing past everybody on their way down to the baths, And Aydra slips in behind them and, still in the armor, sinks into her chair with a, through the speaker of the armor, very robotic sigh. Fee kind of skirts around the crowd, goes straight to your aunt's liquor cabinet, pulls a bottle out, spins the top off, flicks it across the room, and just drinks straight out of the bottle for a second.
Leo just sort of curls up against Zed's chest and sighs. Worst party ever.
Zed, with his face buried in your hair, says, "Yeah, agreed." And then he kind of pulls back a little bit, and he says, "Please tell me this is not all your blood."
Most of it's my blood. I did get stabbed real good a couple times. And then he takes a step back from Zed and turns around to look at Nora, Boreas, and Aaron. Speaking of which, just to make sure everybody's caught up, we obviously got the city moving again. We ran into some very well-armed Astrarian covert operatives. Had a little bit of a tussle, to say the least. I wanted to find out more information about what was going on, but...
Still from over by the liquor cabinet, Fee interrupts. "The man we managed to capture is... quite dead."
Lorelei's still in the room. Leo gives Nora a very weighted look and goes, "Suffice to say that nobody there had any intentions on being taken alive, if you catch my drift."
Nora kind of gives a 1,000-yard stare at the floor. And your Uncle Aaron says, "Lady Shakrana, I think people will be getting back soon. Will you help me prepare hot drinks? And I think everyone will need food. We should probably get that handled." Lorelei kind of gives him a "I know what you're doing" sort of look and frowns, and then says, "Fine." And they head off to the kitchen. As soon as they are probably out of earshot, your Uncle Boreas, shaking like a chihuahua, says, "Oh, Merlin's gonna be mad."
Well, yeah, that's kind of a given. We did ruin his big evil plan.
"Yes, and do you know what he does to people that ruin his plans? How about we ask Valoran? Oh, wait!" And your Aunt Nora, still staring at the floor, says, "Take a walk, Boreas." Your Uncle Boreas, in a gesture that is very similar to one that I think you and Fee have both done while stressed, just kind of puts both hands up and shakes them a little bit, and then he starts pacing the foyer.
Leo goes over to where Fee is standing, takes the bottle of liquor from her, and also takes a slug out of it. "Well, you've got a point, Uncle Boreas. I do think we need to start planning for the revenge that's definitely going to be incoming."
Aydra, from her chair, where she's like halfway through taking off her armor, says,
Well, you mentioned going to the Senate. Why don't we just focus on that and go through the proper channel? At least then everyone knows we're in the right.
Aydra, I'm trying really hard not to be mean. I watched the capital of the Zephyr Isles burn, and that was enough to teach me that you can't win a game against people that don't give a shit about the rules. The proper channels mean less than nothing now. It is all about mitigating the damage at this point.
Aydra gives you kind of a confused, wounded look. Fee takes the bottle back from you, takes another slug, and then you see something light up in a pouch on her belt, and she digs out whatever it is. It's a little silver coin. Looks at it and then says, that's Kalessa. She got back to the embassy all right. No one suspects anything." And then from the foyer, you hear the door open, and
Blockheaded Voldhur fucks!
Fee says, "And that's my cue." And she swans off into the foyer. You hear her catching Sabine and the captain up.
Yeah, fine. Hi, Captain. Sabine.
From the foyer, you hear Sabine go, "Hi, Leo. I hope your evening's been better than ours."
It almost certainly has not, but thanks for asking anyway. Auntie Nora, do you think that we have at least until tomorrow morning to get this bullshit sorted out? Because I am exhausted. Has anyone else made it back yet?
Your Aunt Nora reaches up to pinch the bridge of her nose and then says, Ms. Enmar got back a little bit ago. She went up to her room to decompress. But other than that..." And then from the foyer, you hear the sweet, dulcet tones of Eleonora Ashthorne yelling,
God fucking damn it!
Okay, yeah, Leo runs out into the foyer after Fee.
You see Eleonora standing there. She has what seems to be some kind of pond plant in her hair. She looks exquisitely uncomfortable and quite damp. She reaches up to, pick a leaf out of her ear and then says,
Every time I have to try and, lead people and be charismatic or whatever the fuck, I regret the decision to leave before my coronation less and less. You'd think the words, "Hey, you're gonna die if you don't get to high ground," would motivate people to not fucking argue with me.
Sounds like you had a bad night, Eleonora. I got stabbed a lot. So I feel you.
That sucks for you. I got shoved into a lake by a 10-year-old.
Fair enough, I guess. It's been a night. We should all go to bed.
As you're saying that, the door opens again behind all of you, and on the threshold you see Ravain, Verity, and Talindra. Ravain stops in the doorway. You see that he's shroomed out a little bit. His nails are longer than usual. He's got the fangs poking out over his bottom lip. He's not gone full mushroom man, but he's got a cap popping up on his cheek. And he looks tired. He stops in the doorway, sighs from the bottom of his gut. No lava, so that's at least good.
Yeah, you're welcome. Alright, so we've all come to the conclusion that we're just resolving this shit show tomorrow. Yes, everybody, can we all just retire?
In unison, everybody in this foyer agrees with you.
Okay, great. Zed, honey, I'll be upstairs in a little bit. I just need a minute. I'm gonna go make myself some tea. Does anybody else want tea? Ravain, do you want tea? Leo gives Ravain a very pointed look.
Ravain gives you kind of a weird look back, and you watch a mushroom cap on his shoulder burst. Yeah. I think that would be. And he kind of shakes his hands out and looks at his nails. Good, probably. Verity next to him just very brightly says,
All right, babe, don't be too long.
And she reaches out and kisses him on the cheek, carefully avoiding mushroom caps.
Leo gets Ravain by the sleeve and yanks him back through the dining room into the kitchen, where I'm assuming his Uncle Aaron and Lorelei are still hanging out.
Yeah, Aaron and Lorelei are dutifully assembling little sandwiches for everybody. Lorelei looks up, does a double take at Ravain, and goes,
Huh. That's really weird.
And Ravain just hangs his head for a second and nods. Yeah, so I've been told.
Yeah, everybody else is hanging out in the foyer. They would probably love those sandwiches right now. I think the two of you would be very useful out there and not in here.
Yep, Aaron and Lorelei head out.
Leo waits for them to leave and then puts a kettle on the stove and turns over to look at Ravain. So the, mushroom thing, I thought we had that handled.
Ravain kind of reaches up to rub at one of his temples and says, Yep, mostly. It's, it doesn't happen when I'm trancing anymore, which is good. But, high-stress situations. And he reaches up to kind of prod at one of his fangs. It's a defense mechanism, so you can imagine. I'm just glad I'm awake now.
Yeah, fair enough. I have a magical theory question for you as somebody pretty experienced in necromancy.
Immediately, he focuses in on you, and he stands up a little straighter, and he goes, yeah, I'm pretty well versed in pretty much all necromantic theory.
Perfect, and you are one of the most unbiased people with that knowledge here, and that's exactly what I need. How do you take your tea?
Herbal and bitter.
Cool, great, noted. Leo makes himself a cup of tea that is very heavy on the honey and sugar, and then saves the last of the kettle for Ravane with nothing else in it. And then just sort of sits down next to him at the table, staring straight ahead. So, what I'm wondering is... again, theoretically, is it possible for a person who is not of the arcane persuasion to perceive or notice people in their life who are definitely dead just kind of showing up?
Ravane kind of steeps his fingers for a second and goes, well, I mean, it depends sort of on what undead presence you're talking about. I mean, there are a lot of different types. There are zombies, there are banshees, there are various...
My fiancé.
Huh?
Oh, great. Yeah, awesome. You hadn't heard about this. When I left Astraria, I was engaged. I broke off that engagement, and apparently, afterwards, my fiancé got involved in a very shady secret society and died. And I'm sitting down to get ready to go to the party tonight, and I look up and he's in the mirror behind me. And then at the party, he shows up again to guide me to something I can use as a scrying focus. So apparently he's trying to help. I hope he's not mad at me. Why did this happen?
Ravane is just looking at you slack-jawed for a good long second. Huh. So that's a lot.
You're fucking telling me!
Well, don't get snappy with me. You're the one seeing dead people. He takes a long sip from his cup of tea and then says, so I'm not the most experienced with revenants, but that sort of sounds like what we're talking about.
Well, revenants are physical, right? You can touch them.
Most of the time, it's kind of a broad classification of a lot of different... It doesn't matter.
Whatever this was, it wasn't corporeal. I could see through it. It didn't look like Soren. At least as far as I remembered him. But it was present, and it interacted with me, and I'm looking for answers, Ravane. I need to know that I'm not losing my mind. I need to know that I'm... Have you heard about anything like this?
Ravane's eyebrows kind of squinch together. Another little mushroom cap on the side of his neck bursts. And he says, if he didn't look how you remember him, that rules out hallucination? But No, I've never heard of anything like that, especially if you didn't summon him.
I just attract weird shit, don't I?
He takes another sip of his cup of tea, and then says, can I be brutally honest with you?
Everybody else fucking is.
Yeah, You attract a higher proportion of weird shit than anyone I have ever met in my entire life. You are a magnet for such a density of fucked up nonsense. It is genuinely astounding. And he puts his hands up, does jazz hands, and a cloud of spores forms around his fingers. Turn into this when I'm stressed out.
So we can at least talk to each other without fear of judgment, I guess.
Ravain puts one finger up and just kind of closes his eyes and nods. You're my friend. I'm trying really hard not to judge you. It is occasionally very difficult for me.
Yeah, well... Leo drains the rest of his cup of tea and just kind of leans over and puts his head on Ravain's shoulder.
Ravain reaches up and pats you on the head. Leo, roll me a quick con save.
13.
You take 2 poison damage as a mushroom cap on the back of Ravain's wrist bursts and a cloud of spores goes into your face.
Oh, come on, man.
I don't do it on purpose!
Yeah, I know. Love you, buddy.
Ravain sighs, lifts his mug back up to his mouth and says, yeah, love you too.
I'm gonna... And then Leo turns around and walks out of the kitchen and goes to bed. Fee, the next several days pass in an attitude of tense anticipation here in your aunt's house. Your Aunt Nora is listening to the news almost religiously. Your Uncle Boreas is in and out quite a bit. Aydra takes a while to recover from that journey down into the mechanism at the center of the city. She looks very pale and peaky for a couple days. But it is, if you can ignore the anxiety for long enough, a little bit of a respite. You all get to chill out a little bit. About 4 days after the gala at the museum, you come down to breakfast with the captain and Sabine in tow to see most of the rest of your party sitting around the table in the dining room, with the notable addition of your Uncle Boreas, who is standing in the doorway, rattling a newspaper in Aydra's face and going, "We have run out of time, apparently!"
Fucking uh-oh. I'm gonna walk up into the middle of this conversation, still a little bit bleary-eyed, and say, sorry, what's going on? Catch me up.
Almost in tandem with you entering this conversation, you see your Aunt Nora come out of the kitchen, apron on, wooden spoon in hand, frowning deeply. "Boreas, you've got 5 seconds to explain why you're yelling at my children before..." "Oh, shit." And then she runs over directly next to you, yanks the newspaper out of his hand, and holds it up in front of both of your faces. There is a grainy picture of the innards of the mechanism that turns the city of Voldhur, and a headline that reads, "Senate to vote on formal war declaration." Fee, would you like to roll me an investigation check to see how effectively you can scan this article?
Yeah. 14.
Okay, you're able to gather most of the information in this article just from a cursory skim. You find out that the Voldhuran government has been rocked by the events of the past few days. You find out that the Voldhuran Senate, that typically meets once a month to vote on relevant issues, is bringing a formal war declaration to the table after all of these events that have recently transpired. And that there are certain people within the Senate pushing for an emergency session to vote on a declaration of war before the scheduled session in 2 weeks. Your Aunt Nora stares blankly down at this article and then goes, "Oh, fuck," and runs for the sitting room. You smell something burning in the kitchen and hear your cousin Lark let out a worried yell as they jump up to try to go salvage it.
Oh, fuck. He's gonna go after Nora.
As you go, you run into Leo and Zed as they reach the bottom of the stairs, kind of the late risers of the morning, both with tousled hair, looking like they're in bad need of a cup of coffee. Leo blinks as you shoulder check him on your way by and kind of grabs onto your elbow. What's happening?
Good morning. Shit's fucked.
Leo's not super lucid right now. You have to kind of haul him by the front of his pajamas into the sitting room where your Aunt Nora is hunched over that broadcasting device, fiddling with the dial until the crystal glows and pulses, and then a rush of static followed by tinny recorded voices comes out. And now we go to Senator Tomas Highvale talking about how an emergency vote might not be in the Senate's best interests. Tomas! There's a brief pause. You hear your Uncle Boreas behind you whisper, "Oh shit." And then a much more familiar voice comes through the speaker. Thank you, Claudia. As I was mentioning in my last segment, we don't have a lot of facts to ride on right now. The formal inquiry by the Infrastructure Committee has shown that there's no concrete proof that there was any Astrarian influence on whatever made the wheel stop turning.
Fee scoffs and says, "Well, yeah, we kicked all the evidence into the lava."
Leo has a 1,000-yard stare at the speaker of this device as Tomas on the other side continues talking. And there's something to be said that the actions of the Astrarian Navy resulted in absolutely no infrastructural damage or loss of Voldhuran life. I understand that my esteemed colleague Maximus Grey River and the National Defense Committee which he heads, being mostly comprised of the more senior members of the Senate, have been deeply scarred by the memory of previous conflict with Astraria. However, I would posit that pushing a hasty decision based on nothing more than some loud noises and an unfortunate mechanical failure has the potential to do much more harm than good.
Fee squints at the radio for a second and purses her lips, and then, to the room at large, says, "Okay, why exactly is he trying to minimize what happened the other night?"
Your Uncle Boreas crosses the sitting room and flips this device off with a click and a hiss before he turns around to look at you. Because he is one good man afloat in a sea of bastards, Phirora. He is trying to give you time. The question at play now is, what are you going to do with it?
I'm not sure.
From the doorway to the sitting room, you hear Aydra's voice pipe up. Actually, I've been working on a little bit of a personal project that might have some benefit for us.
Sure thing, Aydra, let's hear it.
Aydra wheels into the sitting room with Erave entering right behind her, rubbing at something in her palm. You can roll me a perception check to see if you can find out what it is.
Absolutely. 21.
Yeah, it's her beacon coin. She is turning it back and forth between her fingers. Aydra pivots around to face the rest of you, nods briskly, and goes, "You know, I was thinking about everything that Leo said the other night, especially all of that stuff about us having to potentially avoid Uncle Moreland's wrath, so I got to thinking about a lot of things. In particular, something else that I had heard about us needing a neutral space for us all to meet and talk about what we need to do.
Right. Neutral meeting place. That's good. We have a few things we need to handle as a group. And then Fee kind of turns back to Boreas and says, I know you and Senator Highvale are friends? If you could arrange for us to have a meeting with him sometime in the near future, I would appreciate that. After we handle, and then Fee gestures towards Aydra, all of this.
Your uncle looks a little uncomfortable for a second, but then nods slowly to himself. Well, I mean, our book club meets this afternoon. It's Tomas's turn to host. You could make an appearance.
Even knowing why I'm saying this sentence, it feels like something I'm going to regret. Yes, Uncle Boreas, we would love to come to book club with you.
Leo's eyes widen where he is staring at the wall, but he says nothing. Arave tucks her beacon coin back into her pocket and says, All right, Kalessa just got back to me. They're on their way. And Aydra nods in response and starts wheeling back into the dining room. All right, everybody, finish your breakfast. We need to go.
Fee kind of rakes a hand back through her hair and to Boreas says, Okay, where are we meeting you so we can go to book club?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what secondary location Aydra's hauling you off to. Frankly, I don't want to, so how about you just come back here after you're done with your big secret mission, and we'll figure it out from there.
All right, a simple, hopefully foolproof plan. Cool, got it, great.
Why did you have to say that? And then he walks back into the dining room.
Fee calls after him, I'm manifesting it! Fee's gonna go upstairs and get ready, and then try to pull Leo aside before they leave. Hey, I've already talked about this with Arave. She has concerns about Fen and Kalessa's role in all of this. And I don't necessarily agree, but I think it would be a good policy to just put all of us under a zone of truth and make sure everyone has the same facts. If that makes sense?
Leo looks at you like you have threatened him with violence by bringing this up. Oh, yeah, you're telling me that I should just go in there and suggest that we vet the trustworthiness of the people that are helping us save the world and have saved our asses multiple times. That's gonna go over like a lead balloon, Fee.
Well, how else is everyone here supposed to trust each other? We need everyone to cooperate, and I don't know where everyone's at, but I'm sure there are a few people here that have concerns about someone else in our greater party.
Yeah, shit, you're right. I am not going to be the one to look at Kalessa and tell her that I can't trust her unless we do this. I can't. I won't. If you want to do this, then you need to be the one that brings it up to everybody.
Yeah, can do.
He reaches down to tighten his bracer and kind of stares out the open front door past where Aydra and Lark are talking on the porch. A vacation would be so nice right now.
After we save the world and hopefully survive, I'll set you up with a beach somewhere.
I want a cabana and a limitless supply of coconut drinks. Let's go stop a war. All of the rest of you, except for Lorelei, who looks very pissed off at being left behind, disappear after Lark and Aydra into the streets of Voldhur. The city is still just barely starting to wake up. There's not a lot of people out moving around. Go ahead and roll me a survival check, Fee.
This should be good. Big fat -1. 14.
Okay, with a 14, you are able to discern that you're traveling some pretty familiar streets. You've been down this route before. Aydra rolls out ahead of the rest of you, leads you around a sharp turn into a dark alley, and stops at the far end of it before turning around to face all of you. Alright, so we're gonna want to go in a couple at a time, a few minutes apart, just so it looks like we're not all going in a group to anybody that might be watching. I'll go make sure everything's set up. Lark, you're with me. They turn this corner, and you realize why this route was familiar. As you watch the two of them head down to a run-down garage with a sign over it that says Mancini and Sons Mechanics.
I'm gonna go absolutely fucking batshit.
Next to you, Leo, sounding similarly exhausted, mutters, "Oh god, not the Tonys." Off to the side, Verity goes, "What's a Tony?"
Verity, it is your lucky day. You're about to find out.
Okay. She loops her arm through Ravain's and grabs Celica's hand and tugs the three of them around the corner down the street after Lark and Aydra. You wait for a few more minutes at your cousin's request, and then Erve, the captain, and Sabine all group up and head out of the alley. You are left standing there with Leo, Zed, and Eleonora. Eleonora looks around at the three of you who have all been in this building before and know the tomfoolery that is happening inside. And she kind of frowns at you and goes, should I prepare myself for whatever's about to go down in there? Because you three look like you know.
There's 4 of them. They're all named Tony.
Huh. Fee, has anyone ever told you that you have got a real bad habit of taking normal sentences and making them the most ominous fucking thing I've ever heard?
Eleonora, that's what it's like in my brain all the time. Let's just go.
The 4 of you make your way out of this alley, down the street, into the lobby of the garage. No one from your party is in there. You are simply standing there, face to face, with the little gnomish man behind the desk. Sturdy blue shirt, gold chain around his neck, little patch on his breast that says Tony, Tony. He looks up from this little ledger that he's been scribbling on, tilts his head at you, and goes, "Hey, you here to pick up that pot that Aydra ordered?" And then he winks at you, but it's so disturbing. He winks so hard, like half of this man's face convulses with how hard he winks.
Yes, we are here to pick up Aydra's part. And then, looking extremely unsettled, Fee winks back hesitantly.
He nods back behind him towards the door that you know opens into the garage from your last visit here. Yeah, no worries. It's waiting for you in the back.
Thank you. Can I call you anything other than Tony? Is there a longer form? Anything else?
Well, I mean, since you asked, my full name is Antonius Cicero Mancini II, but the only person that uses that is my ma when I'm in trouble, so if you did that, it might provoke my flight-or-fight response. No guarantee what would happen. Most of the people in my family just call me Junior.
Immensely fucking haunted. Fee says, "There are 5 of you."
Zed claps you on the shoulder and pulls you in for a little side hug, just close enough to lean down in your ear and go, "At least 5.
Fee just walks into the garage. No more words. She's going.
You walk into this garage. It is much the same as you remember it. All of this fancy Voldhuran machinery that you're very unfamiliar with up on lifts. Shelves of mechanical equipment lining the walls. But as you move further in, you see that one of the shelves against the far wall has been pulled off to the side. And behind it, there is an open door. from which you can hear a lot of overlapping voices coming.
Okay. I'm gonna go in there.
This room appears to have once been a storage room. There are a couple of very utilitarian shelving units with a couple of old parts sitting on them shoved back into one corner. There are also a couple of loose, hand weights and resistance bands scattered across the floor. But it has been turned into a de facto war room. There's a big table in there now with a city map of Voldhur and a map of the known world spread out across it. There are several mismatched chairs arranged around this table, and more are being added by the remaining Tonys that you have previously met. Tony with 2 eyes, this gnomish person with the jet black stacked bob. Today, it is not back in the banana clip, it is fluffed up into a big poof on top of their head, is busy arranging furniture. Tony with 1 eye, Aydra's girlfriend, is leaning over on the arm of her wheelchair, and as you, Leo, Zed, and Eleonora walk in, is saying, this used to be Tony's weight room, but he moved all the weight benches and the dumbbells and whatnot out back for all he is. Forget about it. Buff Tony, Toney, is standing in the corner looking a bit perturbed, rippling muscled arms crossed across his chest. And hanging out around this table, for the first time, the full assembled force of all of yours and your brother's allies are finally in one place. Everyone that came with you from Nora's house has settled down into chairs or are in the process of doing so. And down at the far end of the table, you see Fen, Mia, and Kalessa all sitting very close to each other. There's this tense moment of everybody regarding each other, and then Tony, Toni, this little lady with the dark buzz cut, leans in, kisses Aydra on the temple, and goes, "All right, we'll leave yous to it. Don't worry, nobody in our family's a fucking snitch. It's like Grandma Tony used to say."
Who?
In the doorway, Zed purses his lips and whispers, "At least 6. The remaining Tonys all leave the room, swinging the door shut behind them, and you are left staring at the full sum of your party. A weird silence falls over the room, finally broken by Aydra shrugging and going, "Right, well, I mean, here's your neutral space."
Aydra, be very honest with me. You genuinely think no one is going to track us to your girlfriend's garage?
Well, I mean, there's no paper trail, so unless they know me personally, it's going to be very, very hard to do. Tony's parents don't even know that we're dating. It's complicated. It's a whole, West Voldhur story thing.
Uh-huh. Okay.
It's out of the way. It's not connected to our family in any way. And it's somewhere that Fen, Kalessa, and Mia can access without drawing suspicion. What else are we going to do? Have war councils at the park?
Yep. Nope. You're right. You're absolutely right. Okay. Fee, making an extremely pained expression, stands at the end of the table and says, "All right, everybody, let's just get into it. I think we're all aware that some people here have misgivings about information that some of us might not be sharing. And she gestures at Leo. We have access to a Zone of Truth spell. I am not saying this to judge anyone. I am just saying I think we would all be more comfortable if we just got everything out in the open now."
Roll insight for me. You're rolling on Kalessa, so go ahead and do that with advantage.
That's a 16.
You say this, and Kalessa doesn't look at you. She whips her head around to look at Leo, and an absolutely disgusted look crosses her face. Really? You know, they should do research into making armor out of whatever the hell your skull is made out of. We had that whole fucking talk, Leo, and you pulled this?
Kalessa, if you're going to be mad at someone, perhaps you should be mad at the person making the suggestion. This was my idea. I think it's a good one. None of us can go into this without trusting each other. And it is easier to do that if we all know what's going on.
Beside you, Leo shrinks down in his chair like he is adamantly trying to disappear. And Kalessa shifts that glare, losing none of its intensity from him over to you. Fine. I've got nothing to hide, and I've had just about enough of the people I love not trusting me, so let's clear the air. Leo, wincing, zaps Kimmerl's blade out of its bracer and nods at everybody gathered around the table. All right, everybody group up. I don't have a big radius on this. Fee, Zed, Captain, Sabine, you've all been through this spell before. You know what it feels like. I will tell you, it goes a lot easier if you don't try to push back against the magic. Let's just get this over with. Your party starts to shuffle their chairs down towards the end of the table where Leo is sitting. But, Fee, you notice that one person hangs back. Your brother's associate, Mia, is sitting down at the head of the table, far away from where everyone else has grouped up to get under the Zone of Truth spell. Chin resting in their hand. These big, copper, all-iris eyes with slit pupils flashing under the low light of the room. They look at Leo, tilt their head a little bit to the side, and say, nah.
Fee starts to reach back to get a hand on the Tempest shield.
They just grin at you. And you see that their two canine teeth, while Astrarian elven canines are pretty sharp, are much bigger and sharper than any of the rest of the Astrarians in your party. They don't break eye contact with you. You can try, sweetheart. From next to you, Leo braces both hands white-knuckled around the edge of the table and goes, Mia, I get that being a contrary pain in the ass is your whole thing, and that none of us like this, but at this point, if you back out, it just looks like you've got something to hide, so please just play along. Mia sits back in their chair and crosses their arms over their chest. Oh, I got things to hide. Have I not been fully truthful about my involvement in this situation? Absolutely. Are there things that I am actively lying to all y'all about? You betcha. But if I may, I'd like to present the argument that if I wanted anybody in this room dead, I can think of at least 10 ways I could have killed all y'all by now. I'm not working for your old man, Leo. If I was, you wouldn't be breathing. But whatever this stupid little game you have is, I'm not playing it. They stand up from their chair, and you see Fen reach down to grab their hand as they try to walk away. Babe, come on. They yank their hand back and shake their head. I can't. And then storm out of the room. Fen looks gutted. You see him stare through the empty doorway that Mia just walked out through, purse his lips together and nod quietly to himself, and then move a little closer to Leo to get under the Zone of Truth spell.
Huh. Okay. Fee's going to voluntarily fail the save on the Zone of Truth. As soon as Leo finishes casting it, she nods and she says, I have 3 major motivations here. I want to end this war. I want to get my father off that fucking throne. She looks towards the door. And I want the truth about what's really going on here. Excuse me. And she's gonna walk out after Mia.
You hear Fen's voice behind you go, "Feet, don't." But he does not follow you. You emerge back out into the garage. It is seemingly abandoned, but one of the doors is thrown open in the far corner of this big room. Go ahead and roll me perception.
17.
With a 17, you can smell the warm, acrid scent of cigarette smoke and hear frantic murmuring from right outside this open garage door. It is Mia's voice. You can tell that with a 17, but you cannot make out what they are saying.
Fun. Okay, I'm going out there.
Mia's out there in all of their glory. Curly copper hair back in a French braid out of their face. Kind of Envy from Full Metal Alchemist outfit. Crop top, shorts, practical boots. Leaning up against a wall, frantically chain smoking.
Fee steps out and says, "Talking to anyone in particular?"
They don't turn to look at you. They're just glaring daggers into the brick wall of the building opposite the garage. No, not really. Just, saying my daily prayers, calling on Kimmerl for guidance.
Sure. Fee steps a little closer to them, reaching up to take the shield off her back, and says, "I don't think we have any need for pretense in this conversation. We both know I don't trust you. We both know that almost no one in that room does. But given that it is almost no one, I think you should ask yourself what your secrets are worth. I don't really care what your motivations are, but I care about Fen, and he deserves better than to be with someone who will lie to his face."
Mia reaches out to stub their cigarette out against the wall, and then finally turns around to look at you. Their eyes flash in this really weird way. It is not at all explainable by the light in this alley. And they just fix you with this big, bright, supremely threatening smile. Oh, bless your heart. They grab another cigarette out of their pocket, and their fingers glow in a weird way to light up the end. I can put up with a lot. I've been doing my job for a real long time, and it's given me a very high tolerance for bullshit. I can put up with all you little people and all your little problems. I can put up with Kalessa having an existential crisis every time the wind blows crossways. I can put up with Zed's pity party. I can put up with Leo's daddy issues setting the goddamn world on fire. But the one thing I cannot abide is to stand here and listen to you, of all people, talk to me about what Fen deserves. Fee, I need you to roll me a wisdom saving throw.
Bitch, what?
You heard me. Roll me a wisdom saving throw.
That's a 13. I'm gonna use one of my rerolls. I'm gonna use a second reroll. I'm gonna use my third and final reroll of the day. Highest one's a 13.
Mia takes a step closer to you, and given the angle of the sun on the wall of the garage, you can see some weird shit happening with their shadow. For a moment, it seems much, much bigger than it should be. They reach down to their belt, pull out a dagger, and stab it with a sharp thud into the wood of the garage door where it's half rolled up behind them. But Fen deserves better, she says. Like I wasn't the one that had to peel him off the ground after he thought you died. Like I wasn't the first person in his damn life to tell him that he was worth more than throwing himself in front of the people he loves and letting himself get hurt for it. But Fen deserves better. They yank their knife out of the garage door, and they're holding it in kind of a combative stance as they take another step forward. You're not wrong. Fen deserves better than me. But he sure as hell deserves better than any of you. Glass houses, sugar. They're a real bitch, but not near as big a one as I am. I think you should go back inside. And Fee, you are frightened of Mia for the next minute. You cannot move closer to them.
Fee brings one hand up to press against the base of her throat, and she backs back inside the building. She does not take her eyes off of them.
You head back into the garage, scared shitless. And you can very clearly hear raised voices behind the closed door of this room that you have been given.
Great. Awesome. Cool. Fee goes in the room.
You walk into the sight and sound of everybody talking over each other. Leo is sitting at one end of the table with his head fully in his hands, and Kalessa at the other end of the table, wide-eyed, goes, "You found out what?" Leo sighs and does not look up. Yeah, full-blown fratricide, so that's a whole thing we have to deal with now. Anyway, we've got about 2 minutes left on this spell, so last-minute questions, get them out there.
Fee walks up to the table, nods at Fen and Kalessa, and says, "Unless it's already been covered, I think it would be good to establish how and why the two of you joined the Beacon."
Kalessa closes her eyes and grimaces. I told Alasha we wanted in. Sabine and Ereve both go absolutely rigid. And Ereve cuts her eyes sideways over at Kalessa and goes, "Wow."
Fee's posture goes absolutely rigid as well. With her shoulders tensed, she nods to herself and then says, "We've got 1 minute and 30 seconds, Kalessa. I'd suggest you start giving an explanation now."
Okay, I know how it looks, but you have to realize that Fen and I were in the fucking lion's den, cut off from the rest of you. We had no way to figure out what was going on. And I just knew that the Beacon has their fingers in a lot of pies with all this shit going on in the world, and I thought, fuck it, 2 birds with 1 stone. I can be able to help my friends and be able to keep an eye on whatever Alasha's doing. So I talked to Fen, I got him on board, and the next thing you know, Alasha's handing us both beacon coins, and we're double agents now, I guess. Look, she doesn't know anything. I swear, she thinks that we're both fully in her pocket. And honestly, the fact that you all need a zone of truth to confirm for you that I'm not working for her after everything she did to Soren and everything she did to most of you is fucked up. I'm just gonna say it. It's fucked up. The room goes very quiet for several seconds. And then Leo goes, "And time." Great talk, everyone. Anyway, Fee, I think we have a book club meeting to get to.
That we do. Is Mia back in the room at this point?
Not at this exact moment, no. Everybody's kind of packing up, getting ready to go. You see Eleonora walk over to Kalessa and reach out to put a hand on her shoulder, and Kalessa just jerks away and storms out. Mia comes in after that. They pass each other in the doorway. Mia shoulder checks you on the way by and then goes over to stand next to Fen. You know, for a crack team of heroes on a secret mission, y'all sure do like to argue loudly. I could hear you outside. What's this about a book club?
Fee kind of sucks her teeth for a second and just goes, Leo and I have a meeting with a connection inside the Voldhuran government to try and forestall a formal declaration of war.
They give you that big antagonistic smile again and kind of lean forward onto the table. Well, since you made it so clear how little everyone here trusts me, how about I just tag along? I won't leave your sight. Leo snorts. He's still sitting down with his head in his hands. Okay, Mia, full offense. I cannot think of anybody less suited to tagging along to a delicate political negotiation than the person that leaves a trail of bodies wherever they go. We've got enough dead people to juggle in all of this. And Mia, grin widening, says, Oh, come on, sugar. You won't even know I'm there. I'll be a fly on the wall.
Fee purses her lips and then says, No, I think it's a great idea.
Leo lets his head drop down to the table and knocks his forehead against the wood a couple times. But then he gets up and leaves the room. Mia turns around to Fen and just kind of reaches down and grabs at his hand and squeezes. We're gonna talk later, alright? And Fen, still looking very hurt, kind of nods. Yeah, we'll talk later, be safe. And he leans down, kisses them on the forehead, walks out as well. Mia gives you one last nasty glare and then follows him out. You're kind of left alone with Ereve in this room eventually. And she's just staring down at the maps on the table, not saying anything.
Fee clears her throat. Did that at least make you feel better?
It should have. But now that I'm considering the cost... No. No, it didn't.
Well, son of a bitch.
My sentiments exactly. She straps her goggles down over her eyes and clicks in a couple of the zoom-in lenses on them before sitting down at her chair. I'm gonna stay behind, compile all my notes into something more readable. Good luck at book club.
Good luck with your notes. We'll see you back at the house. And then Fee's gonna head out.
You leave, but our camera remains behind, slowly zooming in on Ereve Enmar as she has always been. Alone with the truth.
So, all of you, with the exception of Fen, Kalessa, and Ereve, start to head back to your aunt's row house. Lark and Verity are, desperately trying to keep up conversation, and it's just not going well for them. You all get back. People start to disperse. Mia pauses outside the secure perimeter because they cannot go inside, and just lights up a cigarette.
Leo pauses, one hand on the gate, and gives them kind of a weird look. Probably not a super relevant question, but I thought that the whole reason that we went to the garage today was that nobody living at the embassy could be seen around this house, so...
They raise their eyebrows at you, take a long drag off their cigarette, and say, Darling, they don't know I'm living at the embassy.
How?
Well, you see, long story short, I've been living in the vents.
In the
In the vents, yes. Anyway, I've been real quiet getting in and out, so nobody's seen me except Fenn and Kalessa. And the ambassador that one time, but I just stuck my head out of the vent real quick, and I think he thought it was sleepwalking or a hallucination or something. I did tell him to his face no one would ever believe him, and regardless of the damage that's done to the man's psyche, he hasn't told anybody. So, it ain't my problem.
I don't know what I expected. I'll be back. Leo just goes inside, up the stairs to his and Zed's bedroom, and grabs the Maximus Grey River book on the Battle of Omegroth and heads back down to the foyer.
You get down there, your Uncle Boreas is, it seems, prepping Fee on the various members of his book club. Fee is staring off into space. You can, hear the dial-up noises that her brain is making throughout this whole thing.
Okay, where's Zed?
He and Ravane and Eleonora have all gone to chill out on the back porch.
Okay, Leo's gonna leave Fee to her fate and go out there to talk to them. He just sort of tucks the book into the front of his shirt, leans over, and gives Zed a little kiss on the cheek. Okay, wish me strength and patience through what promises to be several hours of boring middle-aged men talking about boring, lackluster literature.
Zed snorts. He brings one hand up to, cup the back of your head and brings you forward so he can give you a kiss on the temple. Good luck. Don't stab anybody who doesn't deserve it.
No promises. Love you, see you later. And he's gonna head back out and rescue Fee.
I think Fee has fully started just pinching the bridge of her nose, and your Uncle Boreas has not noticed. He's just still going. So, you, Fee, Boreas, and Mia all head out. You watch your Uncle Boreas step up to the curb with a hand raised and just whistle, and a streetcar with a sign on the roof that says in Dwarvish, it's something called a taxi, pulls up to the curb. He ushers you all into this streetcar looking thing. The driver is a jovial, portly tabaxi man.
So you're telling me there's a tabaxi driving the taxi?
Yeah. Older gentleman, kind of snow leopard looking. He's got the big tufted ears that you've seen on a lot of tabaxi. They seem like he hasn't cleaned them out in a while. They're pretty waxy.
A waxy tabaxi driving a taxi?
Yeah.
Oh, God!
So the streetcar takes you through the Voldhuran streets to a row house similar to your aunt's. It seems to be very much the style, kind of towards the center of the city. You, Fee, and Mia pile out of the car. Your Uncle Boreas says to the driver, "Now I could have sworn the fare rates were lower the last time I made this trip." And the driver kind of leans back over the seat and says, "Yeah, but there's that new tax, see?"
I want to go on record saying that I hate your ass.
And now I'm done. Anyway, you all go up to the front porch. Your Uncle Boreas rings the doorbell, and Tomas Highvale answers the door, looking very much the same as he did at the gala. He's dressed slightly less formally, but he looks very jovial and very composed. And he, as soon as he opens the door, just starts gesturing you all in. Come in, come in. And he kind of looks at a watch on his wrist. You are extremely early. Probably for the best.
Yes, for the best. I hate to impose, but we have a lot to talk about.
Absolutely. you all go in the house. He kind of stops in his own foyer and just pinches the bridge of his nose and says, I hate to be a bad host, but, Boreas, if you wouldn't mind helping me set some things up while I talk with your niece and nephew, I would appreciate that, since you know where everything is. And he turns back to the two of you and says, my study is just down this hallway. Let's go. We'll have some privacy, somewhere to sit and talk.
Absolutely. Tomas, my associate, Mia Sandus. Mia, Tomas, behave yourself.
Mia looks at you and presses a hand to their chest and pouts and says, Sugar, you wound me.
I wish that were true. Anyway, where's the study?
Tomas leads you down this hallway and into a room off to the side. Very, rich wood-paneled walls, a lot of bookcases, big desk that he sits down at with a couple chairs in front of it. Mia immediately leans up against one of the bookshelves and starts leafing through his books without permission.
Leo casts command and just says, stop! Mia needs to roll a whiz save.
25.
Cool. That, beats my DC.
Yeah. Mia snorts and just keeps doing what they're doing.
Leo glares at them, but sits down in one of the chairs.
You and Fee sit down at these chairs in front of the desk. Tomas settles in behind it. Mia keeps doing whatever the fuck it is they're doing. And Tomas kind of dusts his hands off and says, All right, straight down to business.
Yes, so it seems. I understand that this might not be on the required reading list for today's meeting, but Leo pulls the book out of his shirt and opens it to the relevant passage before putting it on Tomas's desk right in front of him. This is our ace in the hole right now. I need you to very frankly tell me what we can do with it.
Tomas frowns, picks up the book, and you watch his eyes skim the relevant passages. And then he looks back up at you, squinting, and says, Are you implying what I think you're implying?
What do you think I'm implying, Senator?
He shuts the book with a snap, one-handed. Well, if this is meant to be your ace in the hole, it seems that you're implying that the sovereign ruler of Astraria got his position by unsavory means, we'll say.
Illegal means, if we're speaking in terms of the Astrarian line of succession, yes. I had the privilege of speaking with Senator Greyriver at the gala as well, and he seemed to corroborate a lot of these thoughts. However, I'm wondering if he perhaps has ulterior motives. Either way, I'm here asking you what my sister and I can do with this information to help stop all-out war.
Tomas purses his lips, shakes his head. Well, first of all, Greyriver's a snake, but he hasn't lived as long as he has without being a smart one. I don't think his intention is to stop this war, however.
Leo looks over at Fee, and then back to Tomas. What do you think his intention is? Because he seemed very eager to back my claim to the throne of Astraria.
Tomas sets the book you handed him down on his desk and taps the cover with a finger. I think Maximus Greyriver's intention is to make money, and he's made quite a name for himself as someone who writes war stories. And what with him leading the charge on this ridiculous emergency Senate meeting to try and he just raises his hands to do air quotes, deliberate on the matter of declaring war on Astraria, I think he sees this as the easiest way to get himself back in the spotlight.
Under the desk, Leo pulls Kimrel's blade out and sends a message cantrip to Fee. Should we tell him what actually happened down there?
Fee sends a message back. Not yet, I don't think.
Leo purses his lips, nods, and then turns back to Tomas. Understood. Thank you for your insight. My sister and I have a bit more of a holistic view on the situation, and access to details that we're not comfortable with sharing at large yet. But this has provided a great degree of clarity, thank you. Moving on to what we can do with this information. I'm anxious to hear your thoughts.
He squints at you for a long moment. I'm gonna have him roll insight. I'm just gonna say it's a DC 12, given that you don't have great deception. Well, he rolled a 3, but that'll still do it, because he's got max whiz and he's got proficiency. He looks at you for a long second, and then nods, and then taps the cover of the book again and says, well, unless one of the details that you're not comfortable sharing is actual proof of what you're telling me you suspect, I don't think there's a lot.
Actual proof? We have evidence here that the Grand Duke of Astraria was engaged in peace talks with Vog Voldhur and then mysteriously got a Voldhuran knife to the chest before they went through?
Son, that's not proof, that's conjecture. Well-informed conjecture, I'll give you that, but the Senate's a legal body. If you don't have an actual legal claim that is backed up by proof, then there's no evidence that, number one, that the Astrarian legal system would replace your father with you in the first place, and therefore, number two, there's no evidence that backing you would prevent a war. He taps the cover again. I cannot sell this to them, whether I believe you or not.
Well, point the first, don't call me son. I've been influencing Astrarian legal overhauls since before you were born. And point the second, I need a benchmark to meet. Tell me what you need, Tomas. We have a similar goal here. What do we need to do to make it happen?
Physical evidence, a confession, something that actually proves that what you think happened, happened. Something that is not, and he taps the cover of the book one more time, predicated on the word of an old man who has been known to over-exaggerate his own accomplishments, and your personal knowledge of your father's character. Something that will actually stand up to scrutiny. That is what we need.
Leo looks over at Fee. How the hell are we supposed to do that?
Fee just shakes her head at you, wide-eyed. There is a long moment of silence. And then elsewhere in the house, something fucking explodes.
Uh-oh!
Tomas groans, oh so loudly, just from deep in his gut. And then he stands up from his desk and starts walking out of the study, yelling, Babe, I've asked you to keep it down while I have a book club meeting.
Oh, I'm following him. This is fascinating.
Fee and Mia are also following. Tomas heads up the stairs. You hear a voice call back. The meeting doesn't stop for an hour. You all head up the stairs of this grand row house. Tomas turns a corner and elbows open a door. As soon as the door opens, you are hit with the smell of smoke and paper.
Is something burning?
Tomas says, probably, and then goes in the room. Are you following?
Yes, cautiously.
The inside of this room is a fucking disaster area. Something made of, like, metal and wires is smoking on a table. The walls are covered in various papers, like, just tacked up there or glued. There's red string connecting a few things. And in the middle of all this chaos stands a dwarvish man with a kind of patchy beard, wild hair that's just standing on end. Picture the Pepe Sylvia meme.
Okay, so Dwarf Charlie Day is in here.
Yeah. On Dwarf Charlie Day's shoulder is... You don't know what a slow loris is, but I'm going to say that it's a slow loris for the benefit of our listeners. It is just this weird little monkey-looking thing with these giant watery eyes and these very long hands just sitting on this guy's shoulder. The monkey's head swivels to Tomas. The guy's does not. Roll me an insight check really quick.
I'm not sure I want to know. 17.
It's nothing bad. You just notice from the way this guy's moving and from the way, like, his hands are tracing over the papers on the wall, you gather that he cannot see. But this little monkey on his shoulder swivels to look at Tomas as the guy says,
Listen. I was working on an experiment. It didn't pan out. Let's move on.
Leo leans around Tomas's shoulder and waves at the monkey. Hello!
This lemur blinks its big watery eyes and then waves back at you.
Ah!
This dwarvish guy stops what he's doing and says,
Ah, shit, I'm being rude.
and then he, in a very kind of stilted way, pivots on his heel. He gives the impression of someone who is in a very altered state of mind. He takes a couple steps across the room, holding his hand out, like straight out, and very brightly, with a big smile, says,
How you doing? Ignatius Tacitus Sunseeker.
Leo very hesitantly shakes his hand. Leoril Valcynes, Grand Duke of Astraria, how you doing?
Your hand comes away from his, covered in ash and ink.
I brush it off on the front of my shirt.
Fee makes an introduction, Mia does not. And from the side, Tomas reaches up to rub at one of his temples with 2 fingers and says, Forgive him any awkwardness, he hasn't slept in 7 years.
Oh! Is that like a medical condition?
Tomas, sounding weary to the depths of his soul, says, No. And then this dwarvish guy, Ignatius, apparently, waves a hand at him, and the monkey also waves a hand in unison.
Ah, don't make excuses for me, Toots. I was like this before.
Leo's trying very hard not to be rude. He just kind of looks around this disastrous room. Nice setup you have here. Are you an artificer, or...
This guy, still just grinning at you, says,
Nah, kid.
and then he raises his arm, and you see that he has a patch of scales going down from his wrist. Just ruby red. And he says,
Sorcerer, with an insatiable thirst for the truth.
and then he puts his arm back down, and he says,
In my pursuit, I experienced the fullness of space and time all at once, and it rearranged my brain irrevocably in ways that my social circle at the time said were,
and he puts his hands up and does air quotes. The monkey also does air quotes.
off-putting and upsetting.
Leo purses his lips together and stares down at the floor, trying very hard not to laugh. Wow, Fee, new friend for you.
Fee, next to you, very quietly says, Yeah, seems so. And this dwarven man in front of you says,
That was like 50 years ago, though, so I've adjusted.
Leo looks back up at the Pepe Sylvia-ness of it all. Clearly.
the lemur creature on his shoulder focuses in on you with the entire force of its gaze.
Ugh.
And he says,
I see that you're curious. Are you gonna ask me about my theories?
I would like nothing more than to hear about your theories.
Tomas, off to the side, pinches the bridge of his nose and says, Iggy, all I ask is that you don't start with dragons on the moon.
Oh no, you absolutely need to start with that. What on the what?
Ignatius, with glee, says,
There are dragons on the moon!
Wow. Tomas, you two are adorable. How did you meet?
Tomas, looking like he's caught between being fond and being exasperated, purses his lips and then says, I was working as a healer and he blew himself up. And Iggy, apparently, says,
I mean, in all fairness, I knew I was gonna blow myself up. It wasn't the intended effect, but I gathered that that was about what was gonna happen.
And Tomas says, honey, that doesn't make it better.
Mm-hmm. We really should be going, but I am just so enchanted about these dragons on the moon. Please say more right now.
Behind you, Mia says,
Well, with that, I'm going out for a smoke.
and they just leave. Ignatius strides over to his big conspiracy wall and gestures towards what appears to be a telescope picture of the moon, and then points at it and says,
Right there, evidence of civilization.
What do I have to roll to see if there are dragons on the moon?
investigation?
I still have proficiency in investigation from Ghost Soren, actually. 11.
As you lean in to look at this photo, out of the corner of your eye, you see Soren, and you watch his glasses chain rattle a little bit as he adjusts his glasses, and squints also at this picture. You turn your head a little bit to see him better, and he turns to look at you and just makes a face like, what? And shakes his head. Yeah, you're looking at a picture of Illyri's moon that is slightly better than what you see every night. You recognize the craggy yellowish surface of it, the big stretches of water going across it. What Iggy's pointing at appears to be a really weird rock formation.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real with you, Iggy. I don't see it, but I'm sure you've put a lot of work into this theory. Fee, we should go.
Iggy kind of waves you off and says,
Yeah, you don't see it. It takes years to become proficient at this field of study. I understand.
Yeah. Tomas, we'll be in touch. I've got some brainstorming to do about how we're gonna get that proof that you need, but we'll get it.
Tomas says, I'll follow you out, and then turns to Iggy and says, whatever that was, don't touch it until I get back, please.
And Iggy very cheerfully says, No promises, sweetheart.
Yeah, I would like to leave this house before book club starts, because I'm not sitting through that.
Yuffie and Tomas start heading back down the stairs. As you're walking, Tomas says, I know he seems a little bit outlandish, but the 60% of what he says that isn't nonsense is really reliable information. He's one of the smartest people in the city. I know it sounds like I have to say that because we're dating, but genuinely.
Yeah, it's clearly an active mind that needs to come up with dragons on the moon just for a workout.
Come back again, I'm sure he'll tell you about the mole people. I'm not sure if he actually believes that one or if it's just an excuse to not get married.
I'm about to say a sentence. Tomas, why are the mole people stopping you from getting married?
Well, apparently, the Voldhur jewel industry is encroaching upon the mole people's territory, and supporting it is unethical. The real reason he doesn't want to get married is because, he doesn't legally exist anymore, and he doesn't want to tell me that. As you continue walking, he just mutters to himself, 7 years. Every time I see my mother, she says, Querido, why haven't you settled down yet? And I have to say, it's because of the mole people, mama.
Wow. Thank you for all your help. You've been a very gracious host. We'll talk soon.
You and Fee get ushered out the door. Mia is leaning up against a wall on Tomas's front porch, smoking. Roll insight really quick.
19.
They look upset about something, but you can't quite pin it down.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they're thinking about what they're gonna say to Fen when they get back, so that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm sure that's it. The three of you start walking down the street towards your Aunt Nora's house, and you get about 4 houses down the street, and then you hear another explosion.
Leo nods to himself and looks over at Fee. Dragons on the moon.
Fee nods back and says, and mole people.
And somehow that is less outlandish than the prospect of us having to figure out how to get Father to tell the truth. Let's go. The three of you make your way back towards Nora's house. A few blocks before you get there, Mia peels off in the opposite direction to head back to the embassy, you assume? It's late afternoon by this time. You walk in and see that a lot of your friends are kind of just milling around in the sitting room. Zed's sitting on the couch listening to a radio drama with Lark. Your Aunt Nora waves at you from an armchair. Welcome back, you two. There's some lunch still in the dining room if you're hungry.
Thank you, Aunt Nora. Fee's gonna go into the dining room.
Leo doesn't follow you. He stops in the foyer and kind of shakes his head. I'm not hungry. I need to go start brainstorming what we're gonna do about Father. I'll see you later.
Okay, good luck.
He heads upstairs. You go into the dining room. Ereve is sitting in there alone with her head in her hands at the table. There's a creak as the door to the kitchen opens, and Sabine comes out with a cup of hot tea that she puts down in front of Ereve. And then she looks up and nods at you. Welcome back. How was book club?
Enlightening and then entertaining.
Huh. Okay. She leans down and squeezes Ereve's shoulder. I'm gonna go wash the dishes. Just come get me if you need me, okay? And then Sabine turns around and walks back into the kitchen.
Fee's gonna pause and turn to Ereve and say, do you want some space or do you want to talk about it?
She has not touched her cup of tea and does not look up from the table. Space, please.
Got it. Fee's gonna walk into the kitchen after Sabine.
Sabine's in there, leaned over the sink, scrubbing at a plate. She sort of scoots to the side to give you room to come stand next to her as you walk in.
Fee's gonna pick up a dish towel and just kind of dry the dishes as Sabine washes them.
It's pretty quiet for a little bit, but eventually Sabine hands you another plate and goes, So, did you learn anything?
Well, apparently there's dragons on the moon.
She pauses halfway through washing a cup. Come again?
Nothing. A theory that was posited to us by Tomas's partner? We came to the realization that we're going to need to get my father to confess to some very bad shit to get any traction, so that's fun.
She blinks and then shakes her head and goes back to washing the cup. That's gonna be risky.
Fee's grip tightens on the dish towel a little bit for a second. And very carefully, she says, it's not like we have another choice.
No, you're right. What can I do to help?
I'm not sure yet. Leo's coming up with a first draft of a plan, and then we'll refine it from there, I suppose.
She turns off the sink and finally looks up at you. If you don't want me to get involved, I understand. I've given you a lot of reasons not to trust me.
I didn't say that.
Ever since the incident with your father, I feel like there's just this wall between the two of us, and I don't know what to do. Try to climb over it, try to tear it down. I want to fix things with us, Fee, and I'm scared that I can't.
Fee takes a really deep breath and then puts the plate in her hand and the dish towel down on the counter. If things had gone worse than they did in that situation, I don't know that I could have ever forgiven you. And the fact that you were willing to risk that, well, to under-exaggerate, it hurt. It hurt a lot.
Sabine looks away from you again and wraps her arms around herself like she's giving herself a hug. I've been losing people my whole life. Over and over and over again, I lose people. So I take the ones that I have left and I hold on to them, and I make decisions to do terrible things to keep them safe because I am that scared of losing them.
I understand that, but I need a girlfriend, not a keeper, Sabine.
She flinches, but then looks up and meets your eyes. You're right. And I want to be that for you. I'm done smothering the people I love in the name of keeping them safe. That's not love. It's fear. And I don't want to spend any more time looking at you and the captain and only seeing things that I am afraid of. You're more than that. So, whatever comes next, if you'll have me, I want to face it with you, not for you.
He's gonna kiss her.
She kisses you back. The kitchen windows cracked open a little bit to let in some air, and from the backyard, you hear a wolf whistle, and look up to see the captain standing in the garden with a big, pointy-toothed grin. Glad you two could kiss and make up. Where's mine? Sabine puts her forehead against yours and sighs. That man. Sabine takes your hand and leads you out the back door into the garden, where the captain is waiting for both of you. And that's where we're going to end for this week.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
That's one word for it, yeah.
And there's only more coming next time
On Compelled Duel.
Hey everybody, Barry here with the postscript, just clearing up a couple housekeeping things here at the end of the episode. As always, I'm going to go ahead and plug our social medias. You can find us on Twitter, Tumblr, and TikTok at Compelled Duel. We have a lot of other cool stuff, like an official Spotify profile, an official website. You could find all of that linked on our various social media profiles. We also host a Q&A live stream every week on our YouTube channel, so if you want to head on over to YouTube and search Compelled Duel and subscribe to us over there, we'd love to see you come hang out for that. It's a lot of fun. If you like what you're hearing so far on the podcast and are interested in supporting us, we ask that you consider heading over to patreon.com/compelledduel, where starting at just $2 a month, you get access to all kinds of cool patron perks, including but not limited to early access to episodes, access to bonus content and exclusive Spotify playlists, and even handwritten letters from your favorite character every month. And with that, a special thanks to our new patron, and we have been asked to read their name as such. The wet, meaty slap of a fish to the face, also hi Nasper, thanks for the podcast rec. If you'd like to support us in ways other than pledging to the Patreon, we ask that if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, that you leave us a rating and a review, since that helps us get promoted to a wider audience. And as always, word-of-mouth advertising is the most powerful tool we have at our disposal, so if you like the podcast, we just ask that you tell a friend about it, and if they like it, ask them to tell a friend as well. Our next episode's going to be coming at you on Friday, January 21st, 2022, and if you're a member of our Patreon, you'll be getting your early access on Thursday, January 20th. Thank you so much, we'll see you next week.